Coming up on the bench, Syracuse men's lacrosse set out on its first road trip of the semester. The Orange played 2 tough games against a top 5 Johns Hopkins team and 20th ranked Delaware. We'll break down how SU fared in its first pair of games away from the Dome. Plus, SU women's hoops has rebounded nicely since dropping a road game to UNC a couple of weeks back. The Orange won 3 straight heading into a home affair with 15th ranked Florida State towards the end of last week, along with another road game at Pitt. How'd Syracuse progress in conference play? We'll tell you right here. Finally, the Cuse women's ice hockey squad is saying goodbye to its seniors and farewell to a CHA playoff spot. The Orange faced RIT along with the second best team in the conference in Mercyhurst. Find out how SU kept up on the ice and a whole lot more on the bench, which starts right now. Good morning, everybody. Welcome inside on the bench here inside our CitrusTV studios. Nico Horning along with Nick Zuppi and Nick Whaley. It's all the Nicks right here. And before we get into our headlines of the week, I wanted to point out one headline that's coming up so far. Syracuse football heading to a bowl game in San Diego. Nick, I know we're both Californians, so we're pretty excited about that game coming up. But like I mentioned, we're going to start off with our football headlines, and former Syracuse head coach Dick McPherson is set to join the Ring of Honor. He coached Syracuse from 1981 to 1990. That included an undefeated regular season in 1987 and a Sugar Bowl appearance in that same year. Mind you, that Sugar Bowl remains the only tied Sugar Bowl in history at 16-16 between Syracuse and Auburn. Head coach Dick McPherson will be going into the Ring of Honor November 23rd. That'll be the Syracuse and UConn game the weekend before Thanksgiving. So Coach Mack, one of the all-time respected greats here in Syracuse athletics history, and also the Hendricks Chapel Food Pantry will be named after him. So congratulations to the McPherson family. Also, some women's lacrosse news this morning. 2 more former Syracuse women's lacrosse standouts, Emily Harris-Chuck and Sam Swart, have been named to the inaugural United States women's box lacrosse team. Harris-Chuck still stands as the all-time SU goal leader, and then Swart, on the other hand, played with Syracuse from 2018 to 2021, led Syracuse to 4 NCAA tournament appearances, and they will represent the United States in Utica at the World Lacrosse Box Championships in September. Speaking of lacrosse, one active team right now is the men's side. Syracuse men's lacrosse, some really tough losses in overtime to top 5 opponents. That includes Maryland and Army. But Syracuse trying to combat that against number 2 Johns Hopkins last week. Let's see how things played out in Charlotte, North Carolina, with Syracuse trying to win its first road game of the season. That's right, they've been on the Dome, or rather in the Dome, for all this time, and Syracuse trying to get going. They had a first lead of the game thanks to a Christian Muley goal. They also had the first lead against Maryland and Army, but obviously SU fans experienced how that one went. Jimmy Ayers puts that one in. We're evened up just a few minutes into the first. But 3.5 to go in the first period. Joey Spallina comes down from behind the goal line and punches it in to put Syracuse up 2-1. Syracuse got off to an extremely hot start in the first quarter, attacking the net, but just a 3-2 lead to show for it. You can see the shot discrepancy on the screen right there as Degnan put that one in for Johns Hopkins, and the second frame features just 2 goals total, including that one from Chavette. It's a 4-3 Hopkins lead over Syracuse at halftime. But here's where things heated up for Syracuse. Between Joey Spallina and Owen Hiltz in the second half, they combined for 10 points total in this game as Owen Hiltz slings that one in right there. Syracuse up 6-4 in the third. But watch this goal. Muley, a little behind the back. That's a yes, sir moment for Christian Muley, up 11-8 after 3 quarters. Fourth quarter now, Hopkins trying to make a move, dashing their way in. Juronsky punches that one home. 12-9, Syracuse still leads. Degnan from a long range puts that one in the net, and Hopkins slowly coming back. They're down just 2. Syracuse needed a response. They got it. Jake Stevens, oh yeah, makes it 14-11 Syracuse. And then Degnan and Hopkins would not go away with 3:45 to go in the fourth. Degnan another goal, 2-goal game. Now, Matt Collison scores for Hopkins with 2.5 to go in the fourth. It's just a 1-goal game. Syracuse up 14-13, trying to hold on, and Hopkins was a little careless with the ball towards the end of the game. And despite a last-minute surge, Syracuse holds on to win it 14-13 over Johns Hopkins, and Syracuse finally picks up a win against a top 5 opponent. So, like we mentioned, Spallina and Hiltz had great games, 2 goals each, but also, how about Muley and Jake Stevens getting it done with a hat trick for each of them? So, a good win for men's lacrosse, 2 wins now straight in a row. And also another good team that has been playing really well as of late is Syracuse women's basketball. They have won 3 in a row heading into a ranked matchup with Florida State. They're 1-1 so far on the season. They lost to Maryland, and they also beat Notre Dame. So, again, what's up with these third opportunities today with men's lacrosse and women's basketball? It's now time to take a look at how things went down in the Dome for Felicia Leggett's squad. Again, both teams have won 3 straight ACC games, but it was the Seminoles controlling early on. They had a 20-19 lead over Syracuse after the first quarter. That Bajetti 4-point play from 3, and then Omaria Gordon knocks that one down. Florida State led by 10 at halftime, but Syracuse woke up in the second half, and much of that had to do with their star player we'll get into in a minute. But first, Perkins, driving her way through the paint, puts that one in. Syracuse went on an 11-0 run to start the fourth quarter. That included this 3-ball from DeAsia Fair to take SU's lead, 63-62. And then Tanaya Latson with the response for the Seminoles with 4.5 to go in the fourth, put Florida State back up by 2. Watch this. DeAsia Fair doing what she does best. On the outside, pulling up, drain and triples. DeAsia Fair puts Syracuse up 70-69. And then again with less than a minute later, 2:45 to go in the fourth. Syracuse up by 1. Fair again from downtown. That 3-ball put Fair at 1,000 Syracuse points, the fastest player to do so in program history. Syracuse still up 4, less than 30 seconds left. That one rims out, Burrows the rebound, and Syracuse ends up holding on 79-73 over Florida State. DeAsia Fair finished with 31 points. Incredible stuff. 9 3-pointers. Yeah, 9. 9 3-pointers for DeAsia Fair. The only player for Syracuse to finish in double figures, and the Orange have won 4 straight. So very impressive stuff from both men's lacrosse and women's basketball. But at some point, we got to bring the momentum down a little bit, and that has to do with Syracuse women's ice hockey. They're wrapping up the season, played 2 games against RIT, and then 2 more against Mercyhurst. And, well, let's see how things went down for Syracuse and RIT. Ended up dropping this one 1-0. It was just a singular goal for RIT. Jordan Bear had the lone goal for them in the opening period on a power play. And it was their Syracuse's 10th one-goal game of the season. But look at Allie Kelly again, playing well for the Orange, 26 saves, just nothing to write home about on the offensive end, and the struggles continue for Syracuse. But they did play the next game, and look at that, a 3-0 shootout, or rather shutout for the Orange. That game took place in Upstate Medical University Arena, downtown, home of the Syracuse Crunch. SU hadn't played there since before the pandemic, and maybe they should just move there instead of playing their games at Tennessee if they're going to put up performances like that. Charlotte Hallett put SU on the board in the second, and then a couple of empty netters led to that win, including one by Sarah Thompson. Allie Kelly had a perfect 33 saves in her 100th career collegiate game. So Syracuse hockey finally gets the win, but when we come back, speaking of tough, it's been a tough season so far for Syracuse men's basketball. Despite a win last night, we'll explain why and how SU can improve going forward when we return here on The Bench. Welcome back inside our Citrus TV studios. Good morning to you guys. Good morning to you two again. Nick Zuppi and Nick Whaley here with you. And we're going to play a little game where you're going to buy or sell these questions that I'm going to present to you here in just a minute. But overall, it's been a tough stretch for Syracuse men's basketball this season. Donnie Freeman, a 5-star recruit, has been a little inconsistent, although better as of late. Head coach Adrian Autry in year 2. Maybe not the best record that you want so far. J.J. Starling out. Obviously, the Orange don't have Judah Mintz. So, tough situation so far. But I want to hear from you guys, and I want to know if Donnie Freeman, the now 5-star freshman for Syracuse, is a first-round draft pick come 2025. Nick Zuppi, I'll start with you.
I'm going to have to sell this one, Nico. Just Donnie Freeman, when you look at him as a player, he's too skinny. He's not a true 3-and-D guy, right? He can't get his own shot effectively as so. He's not, like I said, he's not a true 3-and-D guy. There's plenty of other college basketball hoopers that get their own shot better than him. Dylan Harper, Ace Bailey, Trey Johnson, to name a couple. He doesn't do anything really specific that I really am just grasping at. Yeah, that's one of the best players in college basketball. So I think he falls out of the first round, but maybe a hidden gem.
Those four 3-pointers. I mean, from last night, does that not count?
Yeah, he is also so naturally gifted as an athlete. There's no way that he's not going to be at least a first-round draft pick. I think he's going to be maybe mid-20s, I think he'll be. But with J.J. Starling out of this team, there's going to be someone that needs to step out. Why can't that be Donnie Freeman? If he can lead this Syracuse team to a good conference stretch and good conference record, maybe possibly make a run in the ACC tournament, tournament, no doubt in my mind that Donnie Freeman will be a first-round draft pick. And that was what it was always going to be for the top 10 recruit. It was going to be a one and done for him. He is just that naturally gifted. So look, I think without a doubt, he will be an NBA player this time next year.
Hey, he's been picking up the consistency a little bit more than he did early in the season, and a lot of that can be credited to the minutes he's been receiving from head coach Adrian Autry, which, by the way, not exactly off to his best start that he had last year. He had a 5-4, or rather a 6-4 record for Syracuse, and right now just a little bit over 500. Speaking of Autry and minutes and everything going on, do you guys think he's better in year 2 right now than he was last year, Nick?
I'm going to sell this one just because he doesn't have his best player on the floor. J.J. Starling is a 20 points a game guy. He's not on the court right now for Coach Adrian Autry. There's no way that you can have a productive system without your lead guard on this team. And I think as well the defensive struggles, that's just because there's been so many moving pieces this season, so many new transfers coming in. I don't think Coach Autry has figured out his core starting 5 yet and his core system yet, which may be a little bit of a worry, but I think there's still such a long way to go that you can't write off this season as being completely worse than last year. Especially they're 5-4 right now. They could still easily get to 20 wins.
Outside of our agreement of your great first name, I'm going to have to agree with you on this one. I'm going to sell it. It's too early to tell for me. Yes, they played the easy games in the beginning, some of the cupcakes that they really just didn't eat the cupcake fully against Youngstown State, went to double overtime. That just can't happen. But a coach can control as much as he can control. Therefore, when you got Chris Bell, who's shooting 26% from 3, Coach Adrian Autry can't shoot the shots for him. Chris Bell's got to knock him down. So when the players are not doing what they can on the court, there's only so much a coach can do. And somebody mentioned earlier how he brought in all these talent from the transfer portal. He's not like Fran Brown, who brought in 5-star and 4-star talent like Kyle McCord and Fidel Diggs. He brought in guys, Jair Davis and Jaquan Carlos, from Hofstra in Delaware. They're not these crazy high school prospects, so I'm going to have to sell this one.
And you're saying that Eddie Lampkin is not a great transfer, was one of the best players in the tournament last year?
There's a reason why I didn't say his name in that list, because I think he's been a good addition so far for the Orange.
Second round appearance for Eddie Lampkin last year. Donnie Freeman, a 5-star like we've mentioned. So you guys brought up the shooting numbers a little bit, and maybe Syracuse hasn't been shooting the ball as well as it can. I mean, they're bottom of the ACC, so those stats don't lie sometimes. But let's say they pick up those shooting numbers and gain some consistency building off of last night's win over UAlbany. Can Syracuse be a March Madness team come that time? I know it's far out, but what do you guys think?
I think they will. I'm going to buy this one. 2 of 3 on the sell. This last one's going to be a buy. I really do. I think they're going to win a game in March Madness. I think they're going to sneak in the 11-6 game, win the play-in game, and then get bounced out by whoever the 6th seed may be. But when you look at this team overall, J.J. Starling obviously out with an injury. They have some decent pieces. Starling, like I mentioned, Lampkin in the middle, Chris Bell, which, like I mentioned earlier, shooting 26% from 3, but just lock him in the gym, get some shots up on the gun. They'll go eventually. He's a very capable shooter. So you have guys like that who can really take this team far in March.
There's no way this team makes the NCAA tournament. There's absolutely no shot. The ACC is way too good. Syracuse are going to have a really tough time, I think, during that ACC schedule. I know I was saying earlier about that you can't write off Coach Autry just yet, but I just think there's better teams in the ACC than Syracuse right now. And without J.J. Starling until at least the end of January, I don't think there's enough time for Syracuse to get onto a good run in the ACC tournament, and that's, I think, the only way they'd make the NCAA tournament in the first place.
Well, still a few more months to go for Syracuse men's basketball, including a huge huge game, not calling it a win yet, on Saturday against Georgetown. We'll see how Syracuse plays there. Thanks so much for joining us here in Citrus TV. Nick Whaley, Nick Zuppi, Nico Horning, wishing you a great rest of your day.